Thank you for joining us in This Week in Turkey. I am Murat Tursan. We begin this week with recent developments from Afghanistan. Turkey has begun withdrawing troops amid Taliban's call to evacuate foreign military personnel from Afghanistan by August 31st. The Turkish President Erdogan had previously been in a process of negotiation with the United States, where Turkey would take over the security operations at Kabul International Airport. Though the Turkish administration was intent on seeing the plan through, it now appears that the Taliban has the last word, and Turkey has been relieved of its potential security duties. In a surprising turn of events, however, the Taliban has requested that Turkey assist in the running of day-to-day operations of the airport. Additionally, the Taliban's rule in Afghanistan has many Turks worried about a new influx of refugees. The fires were further fanned this week as the UK Defence Minister Ben Wallace spoke to the Mail, stating that the Ministry of Defence was examining the possibility of establishing processing camps in countries neighboring Afghanistan, the article interpreting it to mean Turkey and Pakistan. President Erdogan, previously very receptive to the idea of Afghan refugees, has now changed his tune, taking a staunch anti-refugee stance this week.
The Turkish Ministry of National Defense announced that the first batch of troops being evacuated from Afghanistan arrived in Ankara yesterday, as the Taliban's August 31st deadline for the evacuation of all foreign forces approaches. However, Turkey still appears to hold out hope for the Kabul airport, as Reuters reports an unnamed senior Turkish official stated that the Taliban asked Turkey for technical assistance in the operation of the Kabul airport after the withdrawal of all foreign forces. Meanwhile, the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan continues to aggravate the Afghan refugee crisis. An article in the Mail on Sunday sparked controversy, alleging that the UK Defence Minister Ben Wallace plans to establish Afghan refugee processing hubs in Turkey and Pakistan. While the ministry did not mention Turkey explicitly, it calls for the establishment of processing hubs in the region. Opposition was quick to both condemn the British proposal and allege Turkish complicity in the plan. Main opposition party chairman Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu accused the UK of wanting to selectively take in some refugees while leaving the rest in Turkey. Turkey's foreign ministry denied the allegations, saying, "We have not received such a request from any country. Even if we had received such a request, it would be unacceptable." President Erdogan's communications office, now taking a harder stance on refugees, also refuted the allegations and stressed that Turkey had not been mentioned by Wallace in the article, and accused the opposition of distorting the facts and peddling lies. Later, Erdogan responded, "Turkey has no duty, responsibility, or obligation to be Europe's refugee storage. We have sped up efforts to ensure the security of our borders, especially on our border with Iran." In addition, the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced that it will provide a loan of $410 million to Turkey to alleviate the economic burden of refugees from Syria. The repayment period of the loan is specified as 25 years, but no payments are due in the first 7.
Joining me now to comment on a matter, former Turkish General Director of EU Affairs, Turkish Ambassador to Sweden and Korea, Turkish WTO representative, and many other highly distinguished positions, Mr. Selim Kuneralp. Mr. Kuneralp, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for the very flattering introduction.
Our pleasure, sir. Now, Mr. Kuneralp, I want to start off by asking you about the Taliban's request for Turkey to run the day-to-day operations of Kabul airport. Why would Taliban ask Turkey to manage the airport operations, and why Turkey specifically? Can I get your opinion on that?
Well, I think, as you know, there had been some negotiation between Turkey and the United States on maintaining a military presence at the airport with a view to ensuring the security of it after the departure of NATO forces. But the Taliban decided and announced that they would not countenance military presence from NATO countries, including Turkey, after the 31st of August. So that idea fell through, but at the same time, there is an ongoing exodus of qualified personnel from Afghanistan, as you know very well. Already by today, I suppose, more than 100,000 people have been evacuated by the United States and its allies from Kabul. Many of them are qualified Afghans from all sorts of walks of life. And I can well imagine that among them would be a number of trained technicians who would be expected to run the airport's services, particularly flight services, and that suddenly has put the Taliban in front of a serious dilemma, assuming that the airport remains open after the departure of the US and its allies next week. Who is going to ensure traffic? And so they seem to have turned to Turkey for presumably a temporary period, asking for flight technicians who would be able to ensure that traffic flows in a secure way. But you have seen, but there are very serious risks involved in such an operation. You have seen and heard the two bomb outrages that killed, I think, around 100 people, including something like 15 American soldiers yesterday. They do not seem to have been organized by the Taliban themselves, but by offshoots of ISIS. So that means that the Taliban are not in a position to ensure the security of the city, let alone the airport. And so until and unless very serious guarantees are received about the security of whatever personnel Turkey leaves in Afghanistan, whether they be people running the airport or even the embassy staff, I think that a total withdrawal would be my preferred option for the sake of these people. You cannot throw them into the lion's den, and the government has a serious responsibility there. So either they would need to maintain an important troop presence protecting both the airport technicians and the embassy staff, or everybody leaves. So it's basically, I think, in the hands of the Taliban to decide what they want to do and what sort of assurances they might give. I understand that talks are ongoing with them on this and perhaps other issues. But as far as I know, no result has yet been reached.
I see, sir. Now, I also, as we know, Turkey and the United States were in the process of negotiating a deal where Turkey would take over the security operations of the said airport. That no longer appears to be possible, but Turkey is taking over the civilian operations. Now, I do believe many are wondering how would this affect Turkish-American relations, of course, the implication being that the United States was in favor of Turkey taking over the operations. Is this a negative, is this a positive, or a neutral, do you think, when it comes to our recent and weakened relations with the United States?
Well, as you said, there were a number of negotiations going on between Turkey and the United States on maintaining a Turkish military presence at the airport, Kabul, Hamid Karzai Airport. So its name is probably going to change pretty soon. The idea being that after the US withdrawal, the link would need to be maintained between Afghanistan and the outside world through the airport. And Turkey actually volunteered for that job. It wasn't the US that asked it to do it, to take over that job. It was Turkey that volunteered to do it. But the assumption was that the regime would survive, and all after the departure of the United States. So nobody expected the Taliban to take over the country so quickly. Indeed, I might say that the Taliban themselves did not expect to take over the country so quickly. So the idea had been that Turkey would secure the airport, but not for the Taliban, but for the regime, the departed regime of Mr. Ghani, Ashraf Ghani. So when Turkey offered to take over this job, it did it partly, because of its traditional relationship with Afghanistan, which goes back to the early years of the Republic, as you know very well, and the contribution that Turkey brought to the modernization of Afghanistan almost 100 years ago. So it wanted to help the regime survive. And at the same time, as you indicated, this would have been something positive in the eyes of the United States and would have helped improve relations between the United States and Turkey, which seriously need improvement. We'll probably come to that later. But all this situation has changed completely. The Taliban is now in almost complete control of the country. There is just a pocket in the Panjshir Valley, which at the moment is still in the hands of the remains of what used to be called the Northern Alliance, Tajiks and Uzbeks and Hazaras. Turkic, part of them are Turkish speakers or Turkic language speakers, and for the rest, the country is entirely in the hands of the Taliban. So the only threat that seems to come is either from the Taliban themselves, due to the fact that they're completely split and there is no central authority, no discipline, no structure, or indeed, as we have seen during the 2 bomb attacks yesterday, they come from ISIS, the local branch or arm of ISIS. So we are now in a situation completely different from what was the prevailing at the time when these negotiations were taking place, and that is why, coming back to what I said earlier, one needs to make a very serious reassessment of the situation before going on to taking decisions. Now, the US has said that, once they have left Afghanistan, which is probably going to be sometime next week, by the deadline of the 31st of August, they basically wash their hands of the airport, of the country, and all the rest of it. It is a complete disaster, of course, but it's a fact. So whatever role that Turkey decides to play from now on in Kabul, I don't suppose that the US will feel particularly grateful towards Turkey for fulfilling this kind of responsibility. Indeed, there are risks involved because appearing to be too close to the Taliban would raise eyebrows in the US and Europe. Turkey has already, for instance, refrained from taking part in a EU position on condemning the first actions of the Taliban on women's rights, for instance. Something like 60 countries signed up to it. Turkey didn't. And that was noted, of course, by public opinion and governments in the West. So if we appear to be too close to the Taliban, there would be a price to be paid for it, seems to me.
I see, sir. And I'd like to segue into domestic politics. I want to ask you about President Erdogan's changing of stance. Now, President Erdogan, last week, we saw him dramatically changing tune. Erdogan stressed that Turkey is not a warehouse for refugees. What do you think we owe this new rhetoric to? Is this due to international policy, or do you think it has more to do with domestic politics?
Well, to my mind, it's basically domestic politics, and there is a general feeling among the public. They've had enough of refugees, outsiders. We have all these millions of Syrians who are roaming the streets and involved in. Some of them, of course, have become, if not assimilated, at least they have adapted themselves to life in Turkey. Others have not. And then you've got Afghans, you've got Pakistanis, you've got all sorts of people who come not basically to stay in Turkey, but because they see Turkey as a transit country between their place of origin and Europe. But people are fed up with all of these immigrants, and this is in fact not a phenomenon that is unique to Turkey, but you see it everywhere in Europe at the moment. No European leader has made in the last few days statements welcoming the Afghans, unlike what happened some 10 years ago when the Syrians left their country in very large numbers. You remember Angela Merkel, the outgoing Chancellor of Germany, saying, we can do this, referring to the inflow of Syrian refugees, of whom there are something like 1 million in Germany. And her line was that Europe had a responsibility towards these people, and they had to accommodate them. And Europe did. Germany took 1 million, other countries according to their sizes and so on. But now you have a completely different situation. People don't want to have large numbers of Afghans. They have taken some. The Americans have taken something like 100,000 in these airlifts. Other countries have taken proportionately less, but I think the UK and Germany about 15,000 each, and so on. But of course, this is not going to end with the airlift. There will be, after the airlift is over, and depending on the domestic situation in Afghanistan, the direction that the new regime might take, or internal strife, or whatever, we might expect continued inflows of Afghans. Of course, it won't be as easy for them as it was for Syrians to cross into Turkey, because in between Afghanistan's western border and Turkey's eastern border, you have the huge territory of Iran, which is 2 million square kilometers, about 3 times the size of Turkey, that needs to be crossed. And there are already, I think, even before the collapse of the Ghani regime, there were already, I think, 1.5 million Afghans in Iran, and one can expect them to want to, and newcomers also, to want to pass through Iran into Turkey on their way to what they hope will be a final destination in Europe. So we can expect this process to continue for years. It's not going to end immediately. So it's best, for countries to start taking their precautions already. Now, and of course, the President Erdogan is reflecting, I think, the feelings of the population when he says that Turkey is not going to be a warehouse for refugees. Actually, as far as I can see, nobody expects Turkey to act as a warehouse for refugees. You have mentioned the statements of the British Defence Secretary and others, but having seen the rather negative reaction from the Turkish authorities. The US and its allies are looking for alternatives. And for instance, I read today that already a batch of 2,000 Afghans have been sent to Uganda at the expense of the Americans, and they will be staying in Uganda until, and more will presumably come. They will stay until their applications to go to the US have been processed. So they need to demonstrate that they worked for the US government and so on. And so people, I think, understand that there is no question of a structured presence of Afghan refugees on Turkish soil, and that Turkey is not going to act as a holding camp. But having said that, I think that it would be useful, for Turkey to start making preparations for refugee camps to be put up at the border, and do this with the help of the international community, and particularly the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. This is something that the Turkish government refused to do back in 2015 when the Syrians surged into Turkey. The United Nations and the European Union offered to build camps at the border for Syrian refugees and keep them there, prevent them from traveling moving all over the country. And Turkey refused to that offer at that time. This time, of course, the circumstances are different. The numbers will be much smaller. But if we do not build up these camps, and they should be, I repeat, built with the help and the cooperation and the financing of the United Nations. If we do not do that, the refugees will come in, perhaps in small batches, small numbers, and so on, and they will end up in Turkish cities because there must be lots of friends and relatives already in Turkey. I understand that figures vary between 150,000 and 500,000 Afghans already present in Turkey. So it would be very easy, for newcomers to find a friend or a relative who could house them, accommodate them, and so if we do not stop them at the border, this is what is going to happen, because you cannot police the border completely. It's a very long border, several hundred kilometers, very mountainous region. Turkish authorities are building a wall, but the walls can be breached. And plus, one has to say that there are networks of smugglers, people smugglers. I read the other day in a foreign news agency's bulletin that there are already sort of prices or tariffs for smuggling refugees. So many $100 from this destination to that destination, so many more or so many less for that. So there is a fixed price for that, and as long as these people smugglers remain in operation, the smuggling will take place, and the only way to stop it is to establish camps for newcomers with the help of the United Nations and the European Union. And if these camps are built, as we all know, the final objective of these refugees not being to stay in Turkey, but to go on beyond Turkey. If they know that when they come to Turkey, they will be put up in refugee camps at the border, they might decide to try another route.
I see.
let me also add, that I'm not just concerned about Afghan refugees, but Iranians themselves. There has been a change of government in Iran, as you know. The Rouhani, President Rouhani, who was more or less liberal, at least in domestic matters, has ceded power to someone who's much tougher. He has a history of being, as a judge back in the 1980s, after the Iranian Revolution. He was a judge who sent hundreds of people to the gallows. And I expect that the Iranian regime will, on the domestic side, also be much tougher than the previous one, and so that might induce Iranians themselves to try their luck at moving to the West via Turkey. There has already been a very strong Iranian refugee presence in Turkey, so we might encounter that problem also in the months to come.
I see, sir. Now, I'd like to finish on, while we're on the subject of Europe-Turkey relations and the refugees now. In the past, we've seen that when we have these three elements come together, European-Turkish relations have been rather tumultuous, to say the least. Now, with the new influx of refugees, the anti-refugee sentiments that are circulating amongst the populace, and the president's eventual new anti-refugee stance, do you foresee that this is a new period of decline in Turkish-European relations?
Well, incidentally, when you when you introduced me, you omitted to say that I have already also been an ambassador to the European Union.
Apologies.
But I just felt the need, to mention that because we're talking about Turkey relations. That is the subject about which I know a little bit, if I may say so. But the fact is that the relations are already at a very low ebb. Turkey is a candidate country, but no negotiations are going on. The last time we opened the chapter was, I think, about 6 years ago. And the European Council, the Commission and the Parliament have all said that there's no possibility of new chapters being opened and progress being made towards accession. So that's a dead end, at least for the time being. Then we have made a joint effort, the European Commission and Turkey, a number of years ago, to start a fresh negotiation on improving and modernizing the customs union that exists between Turkey and the European Union and has been in existence for more than 25 years now, but which needs to be updated. That has also fallen through for political reasons, essentially. So basically, other than the existing customs union, the only area of dialogue that we have with the European Union at the moment is the refugee issue. So I think that the whatever happens after this crisis is over, and let me repeat that I do not expect it to be over very quickly. This is something that will go on and on for a number of years, depending on what sort of regime is installed by the Taliban. But the fact is that I do not see the relations between Turkey and the European Union worsening even further. They're already at such a low point that they could not go even lower, it seems to me. If anything, I think that the European Union is, at least some of the member states are realizing that they cannot cast Turkey off completely and that they need to maintain some kind of relationship. So this sort of minimal level will stay. It will not develop in a positive way, but it will not, or not very much, but it will not worsen either. So we are stuck with the status quo, I would say, for quite a long period.
I see, sir. Mr. Kuneralp, thank you for joining us, and apologies for omitting perhaps your most distinguished title.
It was a pleasure, and I really enjoyed the program, and thank you for asking very relevant and important questions.
Our pleasure, sir. Thank you for joining us. Segueing into domestic news, Selahattin Demirtas, the former co-chair of the People's Democratic Party, or HDP, known as a pro-Kurdish left-wing party, and has been in prison since 2016 despite European Human Rights Court's order that he be released. This is not the first time a Kurdish politician has been imprisoned in Turkey. Selahattin Demirtas is simply one that the government refuses to release. HDP is currently facing a lawsuit by the state prosecutors that could see the party disbanded and its members banned from ever holding public office. Medyascope's Ferit Aslan got an exclusive interview with Mr. Demirtas, where he asked about the former party co-chair's opinion on the current political climate.
Selahattin Demirtas, the former People's Democratic Party co-chair, remains incarcerated despite the decision of the European Court of Human Rights High Chamber and the Constitutional Court. Since November 4, 2016, Demirtas has been held in Edirne prison. Selahattin Demirtas has been in prison since 2016 for the charges of establishing an organization with the aim of committing a crime and being a member of a terrorist organization. On Wednesday, Medyascope's reporter Ferit Aslan conducted an exclusive interview with Demirtas. Ferit Aslan asked, even those close to the ruling party agrees that the presidential election cannot be won without the support of the Kurdish vote. After what has happened, will HDP negotiate with Erdogan? Demirtas responded, our co-chairs have already given the answer whether the HDP will sit at the table with Erdogan. On the one hand, thousands of HDP members are imprisoned, and in prison there is no table to sit at. For those in democratic politics, the table cannot be in prison. The table can only be in free conditions. For us, prison can only be areas of resistance, not bargaining chips. When asked about the ongoing legal case to ban the People's Democratic Party, Demirtas responded, our case and the ban have nothing to do with the legal system or the law. All of these cases are political, therefore the outcome of the cases will be determined by the political developments. To put it bluntly, if this situation of arrested and convicted politicians continues, the political situation will become clear. In such a case, it will be 100% certain that AKP will lose. We don't have much to lose anymore. We are in a strong and advantageous position because we resisted. We were not crushed, we were not defeated, and we won. Let those who have a lot to lose worry about that.
In coronavirus-related news, full inoculation numbers are nearing 60% this week, and the Health Ministry reports more than 75% of the population have gotten at least one shot. It's not all good news, however, as COVID numbers have been steadily rising since June after the end of the lockdowns. As of August 13th, the ministry reported close to 170,000 new cases and 884 deaths. The ministry is currently reporting hospital bed occupancy rate at 55% and 29% for ventilators that are in use. Though medical professionals are reporting that the pandemic has wound down considerably thanks to the vaccines, people are still being admitted into the ICUs. This time, however, the patient profiles are different. New patients being admitted into the ICUs are younger and almost all unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. Our very own Zeynep Timurlenk-Pozut and Özgün Özgül gained exclusive access to Lütfi Kırdar Medical Center.
You can tell by the way I'm breathing that I'm having difficulty speaking. The PPE that we are wearing, doctors put them on and take them off dozens of times a day. It took us minutes to put on. It's hard to breathe in the mask. It's hard to see through the face shield, but the medical staff wear this every day in order to save lives. I'm out of breath right now. That should give you an idea of the conditions they work under to save lives.
It's not rare that our staff have to work 12-hour shifts without any breaks here. You also have to consider their breaks, but they all eat and drink before their shifts because there's no telling when they will get to leave. If their patient declines during their break time, they can't leave, of course.
Servislerde de 55 civarında hastamız var.
Right now we have 15 patients in the intensive care units and we have also about 55 in emergency unit. This year is a little slower compared to last year. I mean, as more people get vaccinated, we see fewer cases. We see fewer symptoms in patients. Unfortunately, however, with our unvaccinated patients, our half-vaccinated patients, their conditions are more serious. And a lot of them, mostly younger patients, get admitted into the ICU.
Do you know how many of the patients in the ICU are unvaccinated?
11 of them are unvaccinated, 4 of them are half-vaccinated. They had the first shot, haven't gotten a chance to get their second shot. Or ones who have gotten 2 shots, but haven't gotten a chance to do the third reinforcing shot. Those are the patients we have here. We typically have patients aging from 28 to 63 years here. It used to be, I mean this time last year before the vaccinations began, we usually had older patients in the ICUs. We don't have older patients here anymore, because a majority of older people have been vaccinated, and with at least 2 doses, or some 3 doses.
How long ago were you admitted?
I have been here for 3, no 2, or actually 5 days right now.
How old are you?
I'm 54 years old.
Have you been vaccinated?
No, I haven't. Due to my illnesses, I wasn't able to get vaccinated. I regret it so much. I wish I had gotten it done. I wish I hadn't put it off. I don't recommend putting it off to anyone. Everyone should get vaccinated. Absolutely don't delay. No one, neither the old nor the young.
That's it for us in This Week in Turkey. I have been Murat Tusan, and thank you for joining us.
Merhaba. Bugün açıkçası bir periskop yayını yapıp yapmamakta tereddüt ettim. Çünkü çok zor günler yaşıyoruz, geçiriyoruz. Zor günlerden geçiyoruz.
Soruyu tekrar cümlelerine geçtiği vakit Amerikan Başkanı Donald Trump 1500 kişiyi temsilen orada 1540 günde daha ani
Afganistan'daki gelişmelerde Taliban'ın
özgür medya, buna hepinizin vatandaşlar olarak sahip çıkması gerekiyor. Söyleyeceklerim bu kadar. İyi günler.